In January 2016, Donald Trump shocked the political world with his audacious statement, "I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and I wouldn't lose any voters." Delivered during a campaign rally in Iowa, the comment captured his unshakable confidence in his support base. At the time, Trump's unorthodox style was redefining the norms of political campaigning, turning controversy into a key aspect of his brand. The statement became an instant media sensation, drawing intense criticism and sparking widespread debates. Critics saw it as reckless, questioning its implications for accountability and ethical leadership. Was it a dangerous commentary on political tribalism? Or simply another hyperbolic remark meant to grab headlines? Trump's supporters, however, dismissed the backlash, interpreting it as an exaggeration meant to emphasize the depth of his connection with voters. It reflected a growing divide where facts and decorum seemed less significant in loyalty and relatability. This remark became emblematic of Trump's ability to navigate controversy without losing momentum, solidifying his identity as a political disruptor. For many, it symbolized the erosion of traditional political boundaries, where audacity often triumphed over substance. Years later, the Fifth Avenue comment remains a vivid example of Trump's polarizing rhetoric and the unwavering loyalty of his base, challenging long-held assumptions about the role of accountability in American politics. What's your thoughts on this? In 2017, during discussions about healthcare reform, Donald Trump remarked, "Nobody knew healthcare could be so complicated." This statement came as his administration grappled with the intricacies of replacing the Affordable Care Act, a key campaign promise. It reflected a moment of candid admission, surprising many given the well-known complexities of the American healthcare system. For critics, the comment was interpreted as a glaring acknowledgement of unpreparedness and oversimplification of policy issues during the campaign. The remark quickly sparked widespread discussion, with opponents seizing on it as evidence of Trump's lack of depth in understanding critical policy areas. Pundits and experts pointed out that healthcare has always been a labyrinthine issue, requiring nuanced solutions and deep expertise. Supporters, however, viewed it as a moment of honesty, with Trump highlighting a challenge that even seasoned politicians have struggled to address effectively. The impact of this comment extended beyond its immediate context, shedding light on the inherent difficulties of crafting comprehensive healthcare reform. It served as a reminder of the complexities policymakers face when addressing issues that affect millions of lives. Years later, the statement remains a touchstone in discussions about political rhetoric and the need for practical understanding in governance, encapsulating the tension between campaign promises and the reality of policymaking. It symbolizes the gulf between simplicity in messaging and the complexity of execution in a politically charged arena. In 2015, during a campaign speech, Donald Trump declared, "I have the best words." It was a bold self-assessment, delivered with his signature confidence, meant to underscore his communication prowess. This statement quickly caught attention, not for its linguistic sophistication, but for its sheer simplicity and the irony of declaring linguistic mastery in such a blunt way. It became a comedic goldmine, with critics and late-night hosts gleefully dissecting it as a paradoxical example of Trump's unique approach to language. The reaction was swift and sharp. Critics mocked the phrase, turning it into a meme and using it to highlight Trump's often unpolished, freewheeling rhetorical style. Supporters, however, saw it as emblematic of his relatable and unapologetic persona, arguing that his directness was part of his appeal. After all, who needs fancy words when you can say big with conviction? The impact of this remark was twofold. For critics, it symbolized Trump's unconventional rhetoric, often breaking the rules of traditional political communication. For supporters, it reinforced his brand as an outsider who rejected political norms. Years later, "I have the best words" remains a catchphrase, resurfacing whenever Trump's linguistic style is discussed. It's a reminder of how simplicity, even when bordering on absurdity, can wield incredible influence in shaping perceptions and narratives. Because, apparently, the best words don't have to be complicated, just confident. In 2015, Donald Trump electrified his supporters with the bold promise, "We're going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it." This rallying cry became the centerpiece of his campaign, symbolizing his tough stance on immigration and border security. The statement was as audacious as it was memorable, with Trump doubling down on the claim despite widespread skepticism. The reaction was immediate and polarizing. Supporters embraced it as a straightforward solution to a complex issue, chanting it at rallies and turning it into a slogan for Trump's vision of America First. Critics, however, dismissed it as unrealistic, pointing out the logistical, financial, and diplomatic challenges of making another country foot the bill for such a massive project. Memes, parodies, and heated debates dominated the media, fueling the statement's notoriety. Over time, the promise faced practical hurdles. While parts of the wall were constructed, the finding ultimately came from US taxpayers rather than Mexico, prompting opponents to call out the gap between rhetoric and reality. Supporters, however, argued that Trump's broader push for border security delivered on the spirit of the promise, if it's not literal terms. This statement remains one of Trump's most defining and controversial, highlighting his ability to simplify complex issues into powerful sound bites. Whether seen as a bold declaration or a fantastical claim, it underscores the role of memorable rhetoric in modern politics. In 2015, Donald Trump confidently declared, "I know more about ISIS than the generals do," cementing his reputation for self-assured, some might say wildly overconfident, claims. The remark, delivered with his characteristic bravado, was meant to showcase his readiness to take on complex global threats. However, it also left many wondering if this was sheer confidence, hyperbole, or something else entirely. Any guesses about the reaction? Let's just say it didn't go unnoticed. Military leaders, experts, and the public alike questioned the basis of such a sweeping statement. After all, it's not every day someone without military or intelligence experience claims to outmatch career generals and expertise on one of the world's most challenging security issues. Critics were quick to call it an absurd overreach, while Trump's supporters took it as a sign of his no-nonsense approach and willingness to think outside the box. Who needs years of strategic training when you have instincts, right? The impact of this comment was as divisive as the man himself. For some, it was epitomized his shoot-from-the-hip style and disregard for conventional wisdom. For others, it was an alarming example of oversimplifying national security. Regardless, the statement became a part of Trump lexicon, embodying his penchant for grandiose claims. If nothing else, it proved that when it comes to confidence, Trump is in a league of his own. Generals, take note. Have you ever had to tell the world you're a very stable genius? Well, in 2018, Donald Trump did exactly that in response to mounting questions about his mental fitness. This bold proclamation came amid media speculation, and in classic Trump fashion, it wasn't just a denial, it was a declaration. Very stable genius, he assured everyone as if this self-assessment was the ultimate proof of his intellectual prowess and emotional steadiness. And you know what happened? Well, let's just say the internet had a field day. Critics couldn't resist pointing out the absurdity of declaring oneself a genius while defending against accusations of instability. It felt like a walking contradiction, a phrase that did more to fuel the mockery than to quell any concerns. After all, when you have to insist you're stable in such grandiose terms, it doesn't exactly scream confidence. It screams insecurity wrapped in over-the-top bravado. Supporters, on the other hand, saw it as another example of Trump's refusal to be undermined. They embraced the statement as proof of his defiance against biased media and as evidence that he was playing a game on his own terms. It's become a staple in discussions about Trump's unique approach to communication, where irony, self-promotion, and controversy mix together to create a brand that's unforgettable as it is unconventional. Imagine waking up to the leader of the free world claiming the concept of global warming was created by and for the Chinese. In 2012, Donald Trump made this jaw-dropping statement on Twitter, suggesting that global warming was a hoax invented by China to weaken the US economy. It was a conspiracy theory that seemed too outrageous to be real, and yet it came straight from the man who would later occupy the Oval Office. The reaction was swift and intense, with politicians, scientists, and climate experts calling it ridiculous, offensive, and utterly baseless. Critics pointed out that the science of global warming had been well established long before China even entered the conversation, making Trump's statement a bizarre and reckless attempt to undermine years of research. The idea that an entire scientific consensus could be fabricated by a foreign government was, to say the least, hard to swallow. But Trump's supporters, did they really like it? They loved it. For them, this was a bold attack on the scientific community, the media, and the political establishment. Trump, they argued, was simply challenging the status quo and exposing the so-called elite agenda behind climate change discussions. Ultimately, this statement became emblematic of Trump's approach to the world, a blend of skepticism, defiance, and a healthy dose of outlandish claims. It may not have won over scientists, but it definitely left an indelible mark on political discourse, cementing his reputation for saying the unthinkable, no matter how absurd it might sound. Can you imagine a leader saying, "I alone can fix it"? In 2016, Donald Trump made this bold and sweeping claim during the Republican National Convention, vowing that only he had the power to solve the nation's problems. The remark, which was intended to portray him as the ultimate problem solver, came across as a statement of unparalleled self-confidence or, depending on who you ask, sheer arrogance. The reaction was as you might expect. Critics jumped on it as a dangerous assertion of autocracy, painting it as an indication of Trump's belief that only he had the solutions to America's deep-rooted issues. They questioned how anyone could realistically believe that one person, no matter how powerful, could fix problems as vast and complex as the nation's healthcare, economy, and political dysfunction. It seemed to fly in the face of the very notion of collaboration and democratic governance. On the other hand, his supporters took this statement as a sign of Trump's willingness to take charge and reject the failures of previous administrations. For them, it was a rallying cry, a declaration that the status quo had failed and only someone like Trump could take decisive action to bring change. "I alone can fix it" became one of Trump's most memorable quotes, underscoring his outsider appeal. It was a symbol of his unshakable belief in his own ability and, for better or worse, it perfectly encapsulated his take-no-prisoners approach to politics. A leader who didn't need help because he was the only one who could get things done. Which statement intrigued you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below and let us know if you'd like to see a part 2 exploring more statements. Join us next time as we delve deeper into the stories of rhetoric and influence, because every statement has a tale worth telling.